Nicky from That Millwall podcast. How you doing, Nicky?
Yeah, not too bad, fella. Not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks. Listen, it was a nil-nil draw with Birmingham this afternoon. Probably not the most enthralling games in the world, but another clean sheet for Millwall. That's 17 in this calendar year, which certainly gives you strong foundations.
Yeah, no, look, the clean sheets are great. They're probably keeping us where we are, 3-4 points off the playoff position. But as a game to watch, absolute boring. I won't swear because I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what this show is, but no, it was a crock. You were lucky to keep awake the first half, hoping that the second half would come. A few chances. Morris Wallace at the end, but no, we need to do more. We don't have that final, in that final part. We just don't seem to be able to put it behind the goal or in the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's a real problem for Millwall at the moment, and I appreciate you resisting the temptation to swear. I suppose that's quite an important point, though, isn't it, in terms of the attacking options? Because, listen, you don't need me to tell you how good Jed Wallace is. He's obviously a very good individual, but in terms of the striking options, Kenneth Hall was supposed to be a good signing, but he's out for long term with injuries. And then you've got Troy Parrott, who's only just coming back from having been out for a few weeks. And then you look at the likes of Tom Bradshaw, who's full of running but not very physically imposing. And then Matt Smith, who is physically imposing but doesn't have that much mobility. It seems like you've found it difficult to find that complete striker that can turn a middling to good team into one that can really compete for that top six.
No, exactly. We've got players what can do different ways, like you said with Matt Smith and Bradshaw and that, but what we need is the players to play with the rest of the players, with the pace and that on the pitch. So Jed's great. Jed's like that kid when you were at school who was fantastic. He's fantastic at playing football. And when you play with him, he's the one that we run in halfway out the pitch to help you out when you get in a bit of trouble and try and run up. But the trouble is, in this current season, he's not going to be able to do that 90 minutes twice a week, regardless of how old he is. It's just not going to happen. And, I think loads and loads of pressure have been put on Parrott, potentially what he's reading across social media, everything else. You've got Daddy coming back, which, Daddy is just awful. It could be confidence, it could be anything, but he's just not there. He's missed the other day. He's missed at Sheffield. He's just not. He's not being able to finish. So, hopefully Parrott can get a few games, good 60 minutes under his belt and then start performing. Hopefully we'll get a couple of games out of him. Hopefully we'll probably, possibly extend it. And then towards the second half of the season, we can start making. But the trouble is, as you know and I know, this December is starting to really stack up with the games. If we don't start running now, we're in trouble. And if our players don't start doing, especially the strikers, like today, okay, great. Daddy was running around all over the place. He was having a, half decent game, but that's not what he gets paid for. He gets paid to score goals. It's the same as Bradshaw. Bradshaw ability on the pitch is second to none. He's into everything. He's going there, but that's not his job. His job's to score goals.
Can I play devil's advocate with you there for a moment? And you remember that Millwall side in 17-18 as newly promoted sides that they had a fantastic season, came really close to making the playoffs. That was a great achievement. You had Lee Gregory there who scored goals, but I don't think Steve Morrison actually scored that many. But because he brought so much to the side in terms of leading the attacks with his spirit and determination, and he's actually surprisingly quick for that stage for a veteran, and his strength and everything that he did, it meant that Millwall was so much better for having him in the side than they would have been if they'd had Aidan O'Brien at top in that 17-18 side. Aidan O'Brien's a much better finisher than Steve Morrison, but he didn't make that Millwall team what it is. So I think I'd slightly disagree with you about the role of strikers. I think yes, they are judged to some extent on scoring goals, but I think you've got to look at other areas as well.
But Morrison and Gregory were could score goals. I mean, Gregory could score goals. Okay, he weren't scoring every game, but he was still scoring goals. At the moment, we're we're not getting those goals. And, you know, today we could have quite happily have got a chance if we had a half-decent striker on who potentially could have got, or not even a half-decent striker, someone who can put the ball in the back of the net. I mean, if Murray Wallace had scored on that, you know, on that overhead kick, I think the odds of that, of him scoring, was 75-1. So, you know, a lot of people would have got a payout on that. But that's what we need. You know, the trouble is we keep playing these games where, you know, they're draws and stuff. And they shouldn't be draws. They should be wins. We should easily be able to get, because we have chances. We have 2, 3, 4 chances to be able to, you know, tuck it up. But we're not. We're just not strong defensively. Keeper, fantastic. We're there. But now moving. Maybe Gary's starting to play with the team a bit, putting people in who he hasn't put in for a while because he knows that, you know, you probably don't want them. But he's just thought, you know what, I'll give you a bit of a chance, see how you get on, see what's what. And yeah, it hasn't got there.
Yeah, I suppose one of the players that you'd been referring to there is Yuri Skalak, and it seems like with Millwall, you get some players who do quite badly at other clubs, but do brilliantly at Millwall because they identify with the fans a lot more, and they've got a certain mentality that connects with that club more than others. And you get some players, and I think I'd put Yuri Skalak in this where they're technically gifted. Skalak did pretty well at Brighton. He was quite good from set pieces and deliveries there, but something about him at Millwall, it hasn't really clicked for him. So are you surprised actually that he's been able to find his way back into the team sheet?
Sorry, I missed who you said that was then. Sorry, because someone just texted me.
Yuri Skalak.
Yeah, no, look, he's not really performed since he's been. I mean, you know, pre-season we were being told he was playing, you know, right back position and, you know, on the right, and he was having really good games and all that. But every time he comes on the pitch, it's a pile, mate. He's not doing anything. To me, it'd be easier to get rid of him and get someone in who actually, you know, wants to play and bring something to it. At the moment, he's not showing. You know, the rumours are he's on absolute fortunes, but he's not showing us, you know, what that money's worth. So
yeah, I can certainly. I mean, I think it's probably best for him as well to go somewhere else for a bit of a fresh start. I suppose. Not great losing Marlon Romeu, who was out for this game as well. I'd imagine that's a bit of a blow. He's got lots more going for him in terms of athleticism than Galak, you'd have to say, Romeu, which is a factor as well. The other thing that sort of interests me about this Millwall midfield is you had Jason Malumbi on loan last season, who's very much a kind of tenacious ball winner, sort of, you might say, a typical Millwall player, I suppose. But what's interesting to me is you didn't actually sign a like-for-like replacement. You've obviously got Ryan Woods in there, and then Ryan Leonard, who I'd say is slightly, you know, he's defensive-minded. I would say Leonard can pop up with the odd goal, but he's not quite as aggressive, I would say, in terms of pressing high up the pitch as maybe Malumbi was. And I wonder if, do you think Gary Rowett is trying to evolve the way that you're playing a little bit more this season and not going with two, you know, aggressive ball winners in the side?
Yeah, I think he's trying to change the way what we play as a rule, because under Harris it was very, very structured, two-dimensional. We either play this way or this way, and teams understood what we were doing. And, you know, and the problem was with Harris, which is being found out with Cardiff to a degree, is that he doesn't have a plan B. And at least with Rowley, he does have a plan B. But the problem is that he's doing the plan A, what he shouldn't be starting with a plan A. You know, like the lineup for today was just shocking with the people sitting on the bench. You would have thought he would have turned it up a bit. But look, I think, you know, Ryan Woods is phenomenal. Marlon Romeo, when he's back again, you know, is phenomenal. They run at players. I think Leonard is a more defensive player, like you said. But with Leonard, what you've got is you've got experience. He's been around the game a while. Do you know what I mean? And you've got experience to be able to filter with a lot of the youngsters what he's putting in, or the younger players what he's putting in. And also, when he gets an opportunity to shoot, that boy can put them away. Very far and few between, but he can put it away. And they're normally, he don't score in easy tapping.
No, certainly not. I suppose in terms of changing the game up a bit today, and maybe it was a game calling for substitutions, it was kind of interesting given that the managers could have made 10 changes between them and only actually made 4 changes, which is surprising given that neither side was particularly impressive this afternoon. And Ben Thompson scored as a Birmingham fan, I don't like saying this, but he did score a brace, I think, in this fixture 2 seasons ago. And he only actually came on 87 minutes, which, considering Ben Thompson's ability, maybe a little bit surprising, you might say.
Yeah, and also I think it's, I mean, we got Derby and Blackburn coming up, Blackburn first, then Derby, and I think, December really we've got an absolute nightmare of games. I mean, what we've got Blackburn, Derby, QPR, Middlesbrough, Bristol, Northampton, and then Bournemouth. And I think, in very, very quick succession. And I think he wants to, the problem is that we need some players what have got some legs on them, and the thing is with Ben is that he will give his all. Okay, consistency is not great every game, but he's a Millwall boy, he's a Millwall fan, and he will absolutely run his heart out. And I think going in, does he want the team he played today, game in, game out for the rest of December? No, I don't think he does. But he's got to understand, he's got to make those sacrifices really to look. Bringing players on at 85, 86, 87 minutes, I don't think it's a tactical decision. I think it's just giving people a run on their legs. 5 substitutes, do I think it's right or wrong? If it's for strategic reasons, it's wrong. But if it's like what, Klopp says and everyone else, where it's about making sure that you're resting players and not giving them injury. I mean, it's all right for us sitting here. We go, you're only playing football twice a week. Do you know what I mean? 90 minutes twice a week, a bit of training. What's the hardness in that? But you know what? If it's about getting injured more and looking at players getting injured more, then the 5 substitutes worthwhile. But I've never seen a point of substituting someone after 80 minutes. Unless someone gets injured, it's just pointless.
Yeah, I certainly see what you're saying. I suppose from the positives from Millwall's perspective, that defensive trio of Sean Hutchinson, experience, part of that promotion from League One, Alex Pearce, who I think Neil Harris described as a proper Millwall leader, really. Yeah. And you've got Jake Cooper as well, left-footed, with the balance there, and he's obviously an aerial specialist. Hopefully some more goals to come from him. And that's a really strong trio, and players who have qualities that sort of complement one another. So you've given yourselves a real base to build on with that defence.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at Jake Cooper. Jake Cooper's played, I think it's over 150 odd games now on the trot for us, which is phenomenal. He's a monster of a player, 6'5", 6'8". He's a huge lad. And he ain't scared. Do you know what I mean? When he went down earlier, it was a bit squeaky bum time because you're thinking we can't be losing him. But I think the defence and Bart has a couple of mares occasionally, but 9 times out of 10, he's great. He gets those saves in where you think anyone else is probably going to let it go in when it does get behind. And most times this season where we've let opposition score, it's by silly mistakes where we've let people get behind us, or we've not defended where we've just missed someone, or they're slightly faster, etc. But 9 times out of 10 this season, we've been massively strong on that defence and the keeper. And if it wasn't for that, then I think we'd be a lot lower down the table.
Yeah, certainly been pretty massive. I suppose you've got Murray Wallace, who's another centre-back. I mean, he's probably a bit unlucky in some respects. You've got 3 other really good centre-backs because he's probably getting in most championship defenses. But Gary Rowett played him at left wing back last season, and I thought that was a personnel issue where he didn't really have another left wing back in the squad. But he actually played left wing back this afternoon, and it seems as though I suppose you've got Scott Malone there. Malone was fit enough to be on the bench. Malone would presumably give you a lot more thrust going forward than Wallace can as a centre back by trade. That's where he played for Scunthorpe. Would you prefer Malone as a left wing back to Wallace?
Absolutely, he's got more pace. He's got he's much more. But you can't fault Murray Wallace. Murray Wallace is a fantastic player for us. He's always there. He gives 120%. He's a great player for us. But no, the trouble again with some of the players you're saying is that it's consistency. Mahoney is consistency. It's, you know, he'll have a great 2 games and then he'll have a pony game, and then he might have a fairly okay game, and then he might have a blinding game. But no, if Mahoney was on form all the time, Mahoney hands down. But he's not on form all the time, and that's the problem. You know, that is, for us, it's consistency.
Yeah, that sounds really important. In terms of sort of putting together, the basics, something you can build a playoff push on, I suppose. I guess the other thing is there's still players there that have been part of the side that won promotion from League One in 2017. You're looking at Hutchinson, as I mentioned earlier. There's still Sean Williams. Shane Ferguson's been there for quite a long time as well. And do you think that Gary Rowett has the squad in line with what Millwall fans are expecting? Because you've put together playoff challenges in 2 of the previous 3 seasons, but you've not done it on a particularly big budget. I'd imagine it's still, bottom 6 budget, bottom 8 budget. So you're still kind of overachieving relative to your budget. But I guess because you've been in this position for a bit longer than you'd expect, maybe the expectations have risen perhaps a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think Millwall always bat above the average. Everyone, likes to joke and have a pop about Millwall, but our wage is probably £1 million, £1.5 million a month compared to the likes of Norwich or Bournemouth or someone else who's just come up. So yeah, we are definitely batting well above, and at the moment that must be, financially that must be absolute nightmare for a lot of clubs. Because of, you've got no income coming in. Okay, fans are possibly coming back next week. Some of the country 2,000, some 1,000 or whatever, some more. But it's still going to be nowhere near for them to start making money. I think clubs need to have 60% of the audience in to make money. And when you're talking maybe 20% if you're lucky, they're not going to be making money. But am I glad that we got the chairman, we got our club, definitely. And am I glad that our wage bill is, fairly low compared to some? 100%, because I think it keeps our players level. I think we've got a good team of players there. We might have what people call as a couple of wage thieves there, but the majority of the players there, I think, probably earn their money, and they're, I don't think they're on anything ridiculous. I don't think we've got anyone on 20, 30, 40,000 a week. I think they're all on a nice structured packet.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really important that the club's well run. You've got John Berylson as chairman, and he's been there for quite a long time now. Is he someone that Millwall fans are sort of happy to have in charge, fairly sort of trusting of the work that he's doing?
It's fantastic. As a chairman and as an American chairman, when you hear all about these American chairmen and all that, John Berylson's good as gold. He's invested over his time in Millwall. I think he's invested probably nearly £80 million over his 10, 12, I can't think now, 15 year or whatever it is period he's been there. And he wants obviously success, but he understands where we are and understands that we've got to build from, when we've needed money for transfer, he's come up and done it. We paid Bradshaw, we paid a good lump we paid a lump for Leonard, and he's not afraid to spend the money if he feels that that's going to give us the advantage what we need. But again, he's not afraid of speaking out. He speaks out on the way with the championship is, where it is an unfair league. When you're thinking, you're looking at Norwich and Watford and the like, who've just come out of the Premiership with 120 million pound parachute payment, when you're talking that there's clubs in the Premiership or clubs in the Championship will probably are never going to see that money in 2-3 seasons, let alone in 1 season. So it does need clearing up a bit, and probably you as well. We done a Championship preview beginning of the season. And all the guests on there, we all thought that the Premier League clubs were going to be near the bottom end of the table. Didn't expect them to be at the top end, but it does show money, experience, the level of fitness they probably are. That's probably why they're at the top.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's really what Millwall are up against in lots of ways, and I guess it's pretty tricky to compete with that. And I suppose one thing that you do need to do is develop good players, on the cheap, and certainly young players. We've seen Ben Thompson come through a few years ago, and that's been relatively a success. And hopefully he can kick on. I suppose slightly further back the conveyor belt, there's Tyler Burry and James Brown, who both made the bench this afternoon. And are there players in the squad? There's Alexander as well. I've heard the name mentioned.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Look, I would put Alexander in, whether or not, he's up there yet. And I understand, obviously, playing, blooding these young players too early can, damage their careers and give them burnout and whatnot. And so I suppose, plus, you don't necessarily want to get them in the shop window too early. But Gary Alexander and Isaac is banging goals in for fun in the under 23s. They're young, they're hungry. Alexander's a Millwall fan as well. His dad was a fantastic servant for us when he played for us, and other teams he played for. And also, he's still got the record for scoring the best goal ever scored at Wembley. With a kick in the Championship final. So yeah, I would give Alexander a run for his money. Just say, you know what, a couple of smaller games or a couple of cup games, stick him on and let him have a go. What's the worst going to happen? He ain't going to be able to perform. But you know what? If he comes on and scores a hat-trick, you're suddenly going to think, actually, this is a kid we might need sitting on a bench when we need to make a difference. And just give him that 20 minutes, 25 minutes and just bed him in slowly. But definitely I would start looking at the youth team and get them in because they're hungry.
Yeah, certainly. I think there's greater rewards from a youth team player succeeding when they come in. I suppose, do you think Gary Rout's obviously a very good manager? He's great record at Burton Albion, great record with my club Birmingham. Got Derby into the playoffs, the only real bit of Stoke, but I think with underdogs he always seems to do a very good job, and that's probably the case with yourselves. The one thing I would say though is, I wouldn't necessarily think of him as someone that's necessarily going to love playing youth. He seems to like sort of tried and trusted players. So, do you think that we will see the likes of Alexander and others like that get their opportunity under our?
I don't know, mate, Gabe. I honestly don't know, because I agree with you. In the players that he's brought in, Mason Bennett, Ryan Woods, the players what he's played with before, and he knows how they work. When we were, with Parrott going off, Zahor going off, it would have been quite easily to just say, look at the under 23s, bring Alexander in for a couple of games, give him a trial, see how he gets on. And we didn't. So, I agree. I don't necessarily think he is a big youth person. He doesn't necessarily like using the youth team. Maybe he just likes the experience. He likes, we don't know how, realistically, we don't know. Gary Alexander's George Alexander, he's playing fantastically well with no crowds. He's playing on training pitches, everything else, no crowd. I think he has had one game for us, but, you stick him in and when the fans come back, you only need a couple of the boo boys to get on him, and he might not be able to take it that well. It could ruin his career, ruin his game. So I can understand why he's a bit cautious with it. But I think if this was now towards the end of the season and we were sitting where we're sitting, then I think he needs to make a move. So I think it's watch the season and see where we go, see how Alexander's getting on, and the other youngsters there are getting on. If they're still knocking goals in for fun, then I think maybe they might get a place if we're still having trouble scoring goals as we go on through the season.
Yeah, well, hopefully one way or the other, Gary Rout finds a solution to that. Listen, it's been great to chat to you, Mickey. All the best to Millwall in terms of the playoff push this season. You're a top bunch, so it'd be great to see Millwall do well. I'd like to see Rout do well as well. So fingers crossed, and make sure everyone checks out that Millwall podcast. But yeah, cheers for joining us, mate.
No worries. Cheers, fella. Speak to you later, Gabe.
See you, mate.